Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you all for staying this late. You are brave. I appreciate you. But I'm going to ask you a favor. Can you be a little bit, can you come and sit a little bit closer? Don't be shy. You stayed this line, so let's make the best out of it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
She's good. People move in.
Yeah, let's get intimate. Thank you. Amazing. I love that. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit weird to talk to empty seats. So thank you. I appreciate your faces. OK. You may be wondering, what is this? I painted it. Yes. I painted this during a few sessions of a painting class last year. I like it. I really do. And no, I know it's not that good. Certainly not good enough to drag it across the country from Vancouver to show people at a conference that has nothing to do with painting or art. Certainly not that good. I'm not that delusional. But I like it. I really do. Because before I signed up for those sessions, for those painting sessions, I really didn't expect how profoundly it would change how I see the world. Before that, I would look at a tree, and I would just see green. Now I look at the same tree, and literally, I can see 10 different shades of green. I sometimes even notice a hint of orange, maybe a blue undertone even. Now I can see how different values of the same color, and yes, colors, I realize, come in different values too, can change the sense of depth in a landscape. Playing around with those colors, mixing paints, trying out different brushes, they didn't make me a painter. Certainly not a good one. But they gave me something much more powerful. They gave me a new lens to be able to see things that I wouldn't otherwise. The other day, I found my husband staring at his phone with a smile and a weird kind of admiration, saying, wow, so beautiful, so elegant. So naturally, I had to see what it was. And it was this. If I only can click. Yes. It was this, a math formula, apparently Euler's formula. My husband has a background in math. So he can see a beauty in this that I don't, maybe except for the colorful font. But to me, it's just a formula. But then it hit me. Obviously, I didn't say that right away because marriage comes first, I guess. But it hit me that when we are introduced to a new word, it can be a new form of art, literally a new language, Japanese, maybe music, maybe chess. We start seeing things that we wouldn't otherwise. We start noticing patterns. We start getting more observant, more curious in that word, and ultimately more innovative. And that's it. That's my talk. No, it's not. I always like to demonstrate my point with a real example, and that's what I'm going to share today. Because I witnessed that firsthand at work, too. I lead a team of data scientists at TELUS. And we witnessed that we work with the call center data extensively. And for decades and decades, managers of front-facing employees, such as call center, or customer-facing employees, such as call centers, they would coach their employees on soft skills, such as ask follow-up questions or summarize the conversation towards the end, with the goal that these soft skills would ultimately impact their performance, right? Such as customer satisfaction, or increase their sales, or reduce their repeat calls or repeat interactions. However, these assumptions or these beliefs that have guided decades of coaching programs and millions of dollars over the years, they've never been tested rigorously with data. They are mostly based on intuition or just experience. And to be fair, it's not as easy to track these soft skills with data. Until recently, because now we have the data, we have the tool. They were not available until recently. But it was pointed out by a very curious AI and data literate person during a brainstorming session that I was leading a few months ago. As I mentioned, I lead this team of data scientists. They are experts in AI and data, obviously. And we have these brainstorming sessions once in a while. But my favorites are the quarterly one, when I invite people from other functions to join. And these are just so engaging. The main reason is that they are not AI experts, but they are AI and data literate, right? So they have the vocabulary to share ideas, to ask questions, to challenge us. And we also get to learn from them. They know what false negative or false positive is, and we get to learn what the cost of a false positive or false negative for that specific use case is. So we have the language to bounce back ideas. And it was at one of these brainstorming sessions that one of these coaches, which again is not necessarily from AI or data background, asked this seemingly simple but very powerful question. Now that we have millions of call transcripts and models that can actually understand context, can we finally test with data whether these behaviors we coach every day actually make a statistically meaningful difference? And that was an aha moment. I love that. Maybe he didn't know that, but it was a very good, powerful AI and data literate question. And that question, that's what started our AI and data-driven coaching initiative. I'm not going to get into much of the details, but I would like to share the overall experiment that we design, or basically the blueprint with you, because I think it's useful. We started with crowdsourcing hypothesis. What do I mean by hypothesis in this case? Just those beliefs, those assumptions, right? These are technically hypotheses. For instance, one hypothesis is that if we summarize a conversation towards the end, then there is a lower chance that that customer would interact with us for the same issue again, or reduce repeats, right? That's technically a hypothesis. Or if we ask follow-up questions, that would improve customer satisfaction, another hypothesis. So we crowdsourced these hypotheses from basically two sources. One, from our subject matter experts, because those decades of experience, they are still valuable, right? We just have to validate them. We don't want to throw them away, obviously. That would be not very smart. So one source is just crowdsource those assumptions from our subject matter experts. And the second one is just simply put, use Gen AI to basically create an initial list of hypotheses, right? So we explain the context, and we ask basically what behaviors or what skills would impact this certain KPIs. It can be sales, RGU, customer satisfaction, you name it. Then the second step is just AI scoring, right? Because as I mentioned, until recently, it wasn't very simple or straightforward to be able to identify these soft skills from the conversation. But now with large language models, especially if they are fine-tuned, it's much more than doable, right? So we would leverage large language models to basically assess the execution quality of each of these behaviors, right? And we would give it a score from novice to expert. And then because we are sitting on years of historical data, obviously for a complete experiment, you want to create that view and leverage that historical data. What I mean by that is that basically you have this conversation, let's say, or this customer interaction, and you know from the historical data what the outcome was, if a sales happened or not after that conversation. What was the result of the customer survey after that conversation, right? So you have this historical data, so you basically join that with those scores. And then finally, that's the fun part, at least for the data scientist, that you can run this rigorous statistical testing to see that if there are any meaningful correlation between these outcomes and those AI scoring. As you can see, this is a really end-to-end design from business perspective, from leveraging tool and AI, using historical data, and then finally data science tools. And here is an example, and just please be aware that I changed some of the labels or the numbers for confidentiality reasons, but the main takeaway remains the same. So here the KPI of interest is repeats. For those of you who might not be familiar with this KPI, it's basically one of those KPIs that you want to reduce in most cases. It means that when a customer interacts with you, you want that to be the last interaction for the same issue. Both from the customer experience perspective, you want that to be resolved, and also in terms of the cost, right? So you want to reduce that. And here in green, you see the top performers when it comes to repeats that have the lowest repeat percentage, and the bottom performers. And then on the x-axis, you see some of those behaviors or some of those hypotheses, if you wish. And on the y-axis, you get the average scoring from AI. And on the left, you can see in the green box that, interestingly, but not surprisingly, you can see that actually those top performers, when it comes to those behaviors, for instance, solution offering, showing problem-solving effort, or checking for satisfaction, they actually show and execute these behaviors more than the bottom performers. I said it's not surprising, but it's very empowering, right? Imagine that as a coach, you have this message for your employees that data, thousands and thousands of data, supports these behaviors. If you really execute these behaviors and master these behaviors, these would impact your performance. So it's really empowering, even if not surprising. However, on the right, in the purple box, you see some of those more surprising outcomes, actually. You can see some of those two behaviors, they don't seem to really impact repeats in a desired direction. For instance, from the willingness to help, you can see they basically bottom performers and top performers, they basically execute them the same. And for the other one, the early report attempt, they are not significant. When you look at the p-values, for instance, they are not, the difference is not meaningfully different. So the willingness to help part, right, we didn't want to stop there because that was, as I mentioned, surprising. Like, how come the bottom performers and top performers, they basically showed exactly the same amount of willingness to help? Like, how does it work? Because you want your model to be also explainable. My amazing data scientist, Danny Lee, took it one step further, and basically he did some feature engineering. And here is the main takeaway. Again, I changed some of the numbers, but the main takeaway is that he realized that willingness to help, as you can see, if you look at the coefficients, just think of them as correlation coefficient, right? Because we want to reduce repeats, so you want it to be negative. So you want more of that, you want less of repeat, right? But willingness to help, again, surprisingly, alone, it's very small. So it sounds like it doesn't even impact repeats, but it's still positive. So if any, it increases repeats, which is not the desired direction. But after the feature engineering, he found out that actually when willingness to help is strategically combined with some other behaviors, such as asking probing questions or asking for confirmation, that's where the magic happens. That's where you can see that desired behavior. They actually start really and rather strongly reduce repeats, and that's what we want, right? So that was a big lesson learned for us and for the business, right? So just showing willingness to help, asking, how can I help you? How can I help you? It doesn't have the desired behavior, but once it's paired strategically, it certainly does. So the point is, with that simple but powerful question, that came not from a data scientist or an ML engineer, but from a very AI and data-aware and literate person, we managed to create this truly evidence-based guideline of best practices with overwhelmingly positive feedback from stakeholders. And what I've learned from that experience and some of those anecdotes earlier is that for innovation, we don't always need new models or new tools or not always new data. We need new eyes. And with that, I thank you for staying this long, and I'm here for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Yeah. Okay, so Shadi, I've got one for you. Where are you going to take your art from here?
Honestly, I don't think it's worth taking it back to Vancouver.
No,
Okay.
I don't mean the
Who
painting
think it's
itself.
worth taking it back to Vancouver? See? See? Oh my
Should we have a
God.
quick auction?
You are harsh.
No, I just, the question was, given how much your art, I guess it was this question of, as data analytics is becoming more of a creative endeavor, and we talk about storytelling, we talk about creativity, designing diverse teams, multidisciplinary, what do you think data and analytics leaders need to do to bring more creative skills, and what do you think the outcome will be in terms of their ability to be effective?
That's a great question, because again, going back to my main point, we need new eyes. We need more diverse set of eyes when it comes to data and AI if we are looking for innovation, right? So we have to make it a little bit more attractive, right? And that's what I at least try to do, right? It's not easy. It's a dry field by nature in most cases, but we have to get a little bit creative and bring people, especially the new generation, right? And I think art helps with that, right? Because I'm not a neuroscientist, obviously, but I think if you engage different parts of your brain, they talk to each other, and that might help.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And the initial question that I had is, where are you going to take your art now that you've started it?
Oh, not literally.
Not the actual piece itself.
I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, maybe some other forms of art. Yeah, or maybe chess. My husband is trying to convince me to get into chess and to be able to see that beauty too. Okay. Maybe that.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And safe travels back to Vancouver.
Thank you.